Synthetics is doing it, but they also partnered with Uniswap, Chainlink. I think they've got a few other corporate partners right now, which is really exciting.
Uniswap's had Unipig, which is their L2 version of Uniswap out for a long time. Like
I tweeted Hayden about that. I tweeted Hayden. I was like, hey man, like I gotta tell you, like we've got users on Digifox right now who want to make swaps into these tokens. And the problem is right now is that the network fee was getting up to, it was like $20-$30 a swap, Rich. It was crazy.
That's because the fucking Uniswap airdrop. Once the Uniswap airdrop chilled out, I mean, we were paying over 1,000 Gwei.
Yeah.
If you wanted to like do trader speed, you were paying like 1,100 Gwei. Like, because when Hex started, you could pay 2 Gwei. And then it went up to 1,100. Crazy, man. You're like, okay, so it's 500 times more expensive.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is there's actually a coin that's tied to that you could trade. So there's a gas coin that you could actually trade that's tied to gas price, which is funny.
I know about that. They have like they have the Chai gas token. There's also another one that I'm thinking about. I think the original gas token, but I mean, I was thinking about picking it up, man. Like we were looking at it, obviously as a solution, but I'll tell you,
it's not really. I mean, it just cuts your price in half at most, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. Is it was like you're either paying 200 or 400 Gwei on like transactions, and it's like, look, I mean, what's the difference at the end of the day? It was so ridiculous from just back again in November when we were kind of sitting quietly talking about DeFi and stuff and talking about Ethereum. I mean, you could literally pay transaction fees that were, anywhere from 1 to 10 Gwei.
Well, they're back to cheap again. I think maybe a few hours ago.
It's about 40, 20. And it ranges anywhere from like 20 to around like 60 to 70 and averages out, I think around like 50, 60. I've been watching Etherscan, but it sucks, man, for us because we did, as you mentioned, Richard, I completely agree with you that, if you choose to, for example, the whole thing about Digifox, so the philosophy we had is that if you want to interact with Celsius or if you want to interact with Compound or Uniswap, you can interact with whoever you want in this case. And we're going to work constantly to hopefully try to, mention if they have a custodial platform, if it's a custodial platform that holds your keys.
Most people don't give a fuck. Most people do not give a fuck. I can yell. Chris Black can yell. I can yell. Yeah. No one gives a fuck. They really, they just will not, they don't care. They will put their money in anything. It's crazy.
Yeah, well,
you don't even have to tell them.
Yeah, well, I think the best thing is, above all, at least we have some kind of filtration on like the good opportunities. We did the same with like tokens as well. We don't want to just have a full list of the tokens that you can find on Uniswap without any kind of filtering. But the one thing above all that I think
you can just make a list. You can submit a list.
To we did that. We did. Yeah, so we have our own custom list. Yeah, we submitted it. Yeah, it was really cool.
They just pulled 1 inches off. 1 inch used to be there. It's not there anymore. Funny how that goes.
Really?
Yeah. So 1 inch launched a while ago a competitive automated market maker system called Mooniswap that puts a time delay on the price movement so that the liquidity providers apparently can make a little bit more and the arbitrage guys can make a little bit less, apparently. I've not really looked at the math too hard on it because most of the Hex liquidity is on Uniswap. Well, they used to have a list. And it was the 1 inch list, and it had 500 tokens or whatever, and now it's not there anymore, like magic. Who knew? I wonder why it disappeared. There's so much shit that goes on that people don't realize, like what's happening, right? Like yes, it was probably removed because they're building competitive products, and then they don't want to compete, which is weird as if you launch as an open source project, you want people to compete with you, or you wouldn't have used an open source license. Open source license means please make a copy and compete. That's what it means.
No.
But then they launch a token, and it's like, oh, well, now that we got a token, let's fucking get rid of that list. You're like, it's so shady, man. It's just so, I don't know. You wonder how many people really know what's going on, right? Like, for instance, isn't it interesting that the guy that launched SushiSwap just happened to be in the same graduating class of MIT with Alameda FTX dude? They were in the same class together, and isn't it interesting?
Find the identity of him, or
yeah, it's the guy that owned Band, the CTO of Band Protocol was the same fucking guy.
Oh, really?
So yeah, because they're hosted on the same server, and like he was liked every single tweet the other guy ever said, and you can tell what bag somebody holds by what they shill. It's really that easy. So what was FTX worried about? FTX worried about DeFi killing centralized finance. Binance is worried about DeFi killing centralized finance unless they can get their fucking hooks in the DeFi, lock it up, and then DeFi is great. right? So what they did was they did a vampire attack against Uniswap by duct taping on a shitcoin to liquidity farming, which was sushi. And then they all listed it on their exchanges rather instantly and farmed it themselves, right, to earn yield. And that was their hope of getting their corporate hooks into DeFi in order to like, okay, well, if our centralized play loses volume due to DeFi's, censorship resistance,
make up for it there.
Right. Then their other plays will work. Right. And so like Sam is still doing that stuff from a different format. And I think, some of the things, I think a lot of what he says does make sense, but just because the shit you say makes sense doesn't mean you don't have an angle. Right. And people that own centralized exchanges aren't happy to lose all their money to DeFi. They're not. And I'm in love with it. Like, I am a cypherpunk and I want the power to the people, and fuck these middlemen and fuck selfies and fuck the hacks and like, fuck all that. Like, crypto can solve that, and solving that is a bigger deal than Bitcoin itself, but people don't realize it. More people, go ahead. DeFi and removing exchanges is a bigger deal than what Bitcoin was built to address. Because where do most people lose their money? In these exchanges. And how do most people really use cryptocurrencies? Bitcoin is just the utility token for margin trading. That's all it is. The vast majority of Bitcoin transfers is people gambling on the price. So this is the only real use case crypto has is speculation. And the biggest pain point that people have in speculation are these centralized fucking entities. So solving that problem is a huge, giant fucking deal. Uniswap makes more money in fees per day than Bitcoin does. Period. It's really that easy. Yeah. People care. They really care about these things. And the thing...
It's upsetting, Richard, just to see, like, I think over the last year or so, we've seen, I think the catalyst for it for me personally was when I was watching the Samson Mao interview with Vitalik for Peter McCormack. And I know obviously you and Peter had your interesting conversation.
They've all got me blocked. Magically, Peter doesn't have me blocked, but Samson's got me blocked. When I browse Twitter, I've either blocked them or they have blocked me, and it's mostly I have to private window Control-Shift-N to fucking actually read Twitter. There's so much blocking going on.
Honestly, I've listened to some of Peter's stuff. I didn't like how he acted in your guys' interview and stuff, but I digress. That's I guess a topic for another time. But the one thing that interview he did, I think he did a relatively decent job in that case. Bringing on Vitalik.
I thought that Peter actually did an okay job there. And I don't like him, but he did an okay job in that interview, in my opinion.
Yeah, the takeaway, though, dude, that I just honestly, I've seen as I've traveled a little bit here as of recent, and went to actually a few small events, but like the thing, man, that I just constantly can't get past is the kind of arrogance. Now there is some ETH maximalism, I'll say that's true, but like, man, the constant hostility towards the expansion of DeFi
it's crazy.
It is pretty interesting to see. And the thing that's sad is that I think it's a bit of remorse in this case because, taking a step way back in crypto history, people forget sometimes that what ETH is, was going to be Bitcoin. I mean, that was what Vitalik wanted to propose.
Yeah, he wanted to launch it on Bitcoin.
He wanted to launch on Bitcoin. They could have done a lot of what Ethereum's already done with colored coins and all these technologies on top of it. And it's really upsetting that it's still just kind of sitting on. People say, "Oh, the Ether's never going to scale."
It's already scaling now. Yeah, you do 2,000 transfers like now. It does more transactions now. It does. Bro, I'm going to pitch you Ethereum over Bitcoin if you're ready for it.
I actually want to hear that because I would love you to give that pitch to people. But I've
heard Vitalik do it and he does a terrible job. Vitalik's pitch for Ethereum is garbage. He invented it. I think it ain't no good of a pitch. I'll give you a better pitch.
I think he tries to keep pretty passive on it, not too. But look, I think the overall thing I would just say, and then I want you to give that pitch, Richard, because I think you're pretty good at making the selling point there on Ethereum as we've talked about it. But I think above all, man, the thing that's just so clear is that right now we actually have a real opportunity here with DeFi to actually, as you mentioned, fix a lot of the wrongs here, not only in crypto. So obviously the most valuable use cases here are AMMs or decentralized exchanges to attract liquidity and allow swaps, and also hopefully to earn some kind of yield or interest. But along with that as well, man, like there's so many things coming people haven't realized. There's going to be under collateralized loans soon. There's going to be all types of things. Those margin trading.
I have no idea how they're going to do that. You'll have to tell me. Because I don't
And
know how they're going to do that.
I'll have to share with you. I can't
All
talk
right.
about it now. There's
All
a
right.
project and stuff that is out
Okay.
there. I was originally working on an open source initiative that was focused on that.
All right.
But there's another project of guys who happen to be good friends of mine who are working.
Because I think
on it,
you can
but-
only do that if you have fast enough execution speed to liquidate in time. And so the reason we have over collateralized loans is due to network latency, basically.
So the one thing is for the under collateralized loans, the way that they're doing it is they're actually pulling from real world data in this case. So the one thing I've always been a believer of is if you ever really want real lending to be done in a relatively decentralized way, you're going to have to input real world data. And I know, as you mentioned, Richard, it's kind of it's a game of like, okay, how much information do I want to exchange? But yeah, but I'll share more with you later and stuff. We should definitely do a follow up conversation on it. So give me the Ethereum pitch. I'm curious overall, what made you click on it?
Do you care about security? Yes. Okay. Where have all of the hacks in cryptocurrencies come from? Bitcoin has been hacked twice. Oh, but how? The inflation bugs. Some guy minted 6 billion extra Bitcoin in 2010. Oops. Bug. Oops. They had to roll back the chain and fix it. The same shit happened again, except this time the guy that found it, instead of just using it and becoming infinitely wealthy, what a nice guy, he disclosed it to the developers, and then they fixed it. Now, originally, they lied about it. Originally, they said it was just a denial of service attack. But actually, it was a denial of service attack with a mint as many free Bitcoin as you want. Who knew? Well, they knew, and they told you, afterwards. So Bitcoin's had 2 inflation bugs. Monero's had an inflation bug. Bitcoin's had an inflation bug. Ravencoin's had an inflation bug. XLM's had an inflation bug. These things happen all the time. Why? Because when you want to make the code better, oops, you accidentally fuck something up that affects consensus, and then people can mint free coins. Hex doesn't have this problem because the code is locked. Ethereum also doesn't have this problem. It's never happened to Ethereum. And Ethereum has a bug bounty program. So you can get paid to find bugs in Ethereum. Can you get paid to find bugs in Bitcoin? No, just by stealing the money. So wouldn't it be smart for Bitcoin to have a bug bounty program? Yes. Wouldn't it be smart for Bitcoin to try and introduce modularity to its software to isolate the wallet consensus from the network? Yeah, it would be great. Then they could be more like Hex and more like the Hex Ethereum combo, but they're not doing that. Instead, the developers of Bitcoin are going off and making their own side projects. So when you see Adam Back tweeting, what's he tweeting about? Liquid. Does Liquid have anything to do with Bitcoin? No. It's its own fucking software code base run by its own set of developers that takes away Bitcoin's actual use case, which is settlement. Don't settle on Bitcoin, settle on our sidechain, right? So, and then they have cloud mining play too. And who's left Blockstream? Peter Wooley left Blockstream, went to Chaincode Labs. Some other badass dude just left Blockstream and went somewhere else. And then everyone's been calling out Blockstream forever and just no one listens, right? Samson Mow sells toxic maximalist hats while investing in ERC20 tokens and being paid in ERC20 tokens with a toxic maximalist hat on for sale. What? Are you kidding me? What is this bullshit, right? Be honest, tell the truth. I do it. It's okay. You can tell the truth about shit, right? So Ethereum versus Bitcoin. Ethereum's never had an inflation bug. It does higher transactions per second. It has scalability now. You can do 2000 TPS with on-chain security guarantees through any layer 2 rollup that you want. You can use Matter Labs Optimistic. You can use ZK Sync's zero knowledge rollups. You can use, OMG's plasma shit. There's all these things that work now, that scale now. So Ethereum has never had an inflation bug, can't roll back the chain. That's their major problem way back when. It was smaller, so you could roll the chain back. If they could roll back the chain back, they would do it now for Gavin Wood, who wrote Solidity and who wrote most of the Ethereum code. He's got $150 million locked up because he had a multi-sig failure that he wrote. And if anyone in the world was going to get bailed out, he is the most inside human being possible in the world. If anyone could get bailed out, they would bail him out. They're not bailing him out. So there's $150 million proof. It's probably more now because the price has gone up.
That they're not going to be going through a chain.
They're not rolling back. So we've got proof that they're not rolling back. We've got scaling now. We've got bounty programs. We've got more decentralized mining. If you want to mine Ethereum, you can do it with your video card. If you want to mine Bitcoin, fuck yourself. You can't. You need to go get $1,000 and send it to some weird country you don't live in and hope they send you the mining machine on time and hasn't been tested too long and milked for its profitability. And then you finally get it, and then you can contribute to the Bitcoin network. Bitcoin has 42% of all of its economic energy and 2,000 addresses. It's centralized as fuck. Something like 60 or 70% of the mining is in China. Could you think of a more a censorship-friendly country than China that would be more likely to cause network problems, since they're like the grand champion, global grand champion of filtering internet. The Great Firewall of China filtered more internet than anything